And October has quite a few things going on. Those of you who are churchgoers, you know that it's Pastors Appreciation Month. But other than that, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so that's why I'm wearing my pink, because we are continuing to make people aware of breast cancer. So today, I have a very special guest on. And you know, I always say my guests are special, but she is very special. So I'm going to present to some and introduce to others, Aisha. Hello. Hello. My goodness. So we're here.
Here we are.
Good afternoon, and how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. I'm very glad to hear. Welcome to Moments with Pastor E.
Thank you.
Where do I begin? First of all, let me begin here. In April, this past April, we had a health brunch and for women, and we were reminding women about, their health and how important it is to take care of themselves. And before we begin the show today, I just want to remind people again, women again, that it is very, very, very important to take care of your health. Very. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the entire month of October. We're right to the end of October. But I'm going to encourage you to continue to take care of yourself. Get your mammograms. Do whatever you need to do. Get to your doctors. Those of you who have been postponing, you got cold feet and you're not going to go because you're anxious. You don't want to hear anything bad. Okay, here's the thing. Early detection saves lives. So I'm going to encourage you to, if you haven't yet for the year, go make your appointment and go get your mammogram. Just because October is over doesn't mean that we stop here. You continue to take care of your body. Well, you may be wondering why Aisha is here today. And for me, Breast Cancer Awareness Month has a new meaning for me. Years ago, you hear about breast cancer and you take care of yourself, you do your mammograms and whatever.
Right.
But you never think it happens to other people, but you never in your wildest think that it was going to come this close to you or your family.
Right.
And so for those of you that are watching, this is my oldest daughter. And so she is, we should call you a breast cancer survivor.
Surviving.
Yes. She's a surviving breast cancer, a patient? What?
Yeah, I guess you could say.
Slash? Yeah. Okay, all right.
I'm still a patient.
Still a patient. So I thought it was, right, now that Aisha is ready to share her story, that we talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, I don't even know where to begin.
Well, I can begin.
Yeah. But let me ask you this first. Did you ever, in your wildest thought, that you would have been a breast cancer patient?
I think nobody really thinks
right.
that they're going to be impacted by anything in such a particular way, such closeness, as you said. For the most part, especially if you're accustomed to my annual physicals, all that stuff, if you're accustomed to going and you get a clean bill of health, they say, see you next year. And you're like, see you next year, I'll be back. You just expect that you're going to get news of cleared health and you go about your merry way until next year. So it's not really a thought that, oh, one day this could happen, because up to this point, really, we didn't really have any history, right?
Right.
And a lot of times, we we thought about it as something where you had to have some kind of history, coming down, maybe from greats or grands or parents or what have you. And so since we saw no signs of it really, you didn't think that it would,
It
tag
wasn't
you, like tag,
concerning.
you're it. It's
Yeah.
not something that you concerned yourself with. I
Right.
didn't concern myself with it.
Right.
I'm one of those who, on an annual basis, when they say it's time for this, I'm like, all right, let's get her done. So, I did all the things. And every year I was doing all the examinations and the testings and all the stuff that you're supposed to do. So, certainly nobody plans ahead and thinks, oh, this could happen to me. It's not something that you dream about, think about, prepare for, because you expect, most people, that you're going to just be well.
But I think in a way you think about it because that's the reason that we get our yearly mammograms. There's some people who don't. Period. They don't go to the doctors. They don't, which is sad because like they said, if you detect it early, we can take care of it.
Yes,
Sometimes
better chance. Yeah,
you get a better chance.
yeah.
But you know, it's such a thing that creeps on people. And I just learned this past week. There's an anchor woman that just got diagnosed earlier this year. She had her yearly mammogram. She did. But a few weeks after she had the mammogram, she felt a lump. And she went to the doctors, and lo and behold, she had stage 3.
Wow.
What are we saying? Even though you do your mammograms, there's still another part that you need to play. Self-examination. You
True.
still have to do that.
That's very true.
Because you have a whole year
right
from the time you have your examination before you get the next one. So in a few months, a few weeks, things can change drastically. The mammogram didn't pick up something or nothing was there, but all of a sudden something appears. So tell us a little bit about your journey,
Well, so
how it started.
I usually do my regulars, and I went to, your OBGYN, and she says, okay, guess what? It's time for you to go and get that first mammogram. And I was like, oh, but you hear all this stuff about how painful or uncomfortable it is, and it, in a way, it deters you, and you think, I don't want to go, but you have to. And so I said, all right. So she gave me the information, and she said, make your appointment and go get that done. And I was like, got it. So by the time that I was prepared to go ahead and, get this done, what do you know? I waited maybe a few months because of scheduling and whatnot. And here comes the pandemic. And there were those times where you're like, we can't go anywhere anyway. So, okay, that gets put off for a couple more months. And finally, I ended up back with my OBGYN for a follow-up, and she was like, did you go? And I was like, you know what? I didn't. She was like, don't be afraid. Although we're going through this pandemic, you wear your mask, the medical staff, they're wearing their masks. So don't be afraid to go. We still can, continue with all healthcare procedures at that particular juncture. So I said, all right, let's go get her done. And, I went in and made my appointment, went in. And I remember the tech or the nurse that I saw, she asked a series of questions. And I said no to every question until she asked one question. And I said, well, actually, yes. And she was like, okay, we're not doing this today. We're not going to do the mammogram today. What we are going to do is schedule, another examination to, come together with this mammogram. So if she wanted to do an ultrasound and a mammogram at the same time because of how I answered one of the questions. So I said, okay, fine. So I rescheduled, called the doctor's office, and they put in the order for that test and went back, did everything. And, they said, And, when they start doing the, you're like, oh boy, what does mean? They said, oh, well, things look a little busy. I was like, busy? I've never heard this
Busy.
described as busy. So, okay.
So at that moment,
Yeah.
what were you feeling at that moment?
Well, I think at the moment I'm like, okay, busy meaning what? What does that mean? You know what I mean? It's like a state of confusion almost, and some concern because you're like, well, what are they seeing? And they know more than me because they do this every day. So whatever it is that they see, they have an idea that something further needs to be investigated, right? So I remember the radiologist, I believe, came in and, she looked at everything and then she said, well, you have the choice. And this was one of the things, the sticking points for me, which really kind of turned the switch on for me as, somebody who has to, take stock of your own healthcare and be your own advocate. It turned on the switch of advocacy right away. She said, you have a choice. You can either wait 6 months and then, we do this again, or we can start biopsying and, some of the areas that, maybe we should look a little deeper at. So I'm like, why would I wait? That doesn't make any sense to me that you're giving me the option to wait 6 months. So if you don't know what's happening now, 6 months from now, you still won't know, but that gives a breadth of time for anything to develop. So, and we still won't know.
Right.
So does it not make more sense to start the discovery phase so that we have an opportunity earlier rather than later to see what's actually happening here?
So, and that brings me to the point that we have to be our own advocate.
Yep.
Because who knows what would have happened 6 months later?
Right.
When they're saying it's busy in there and we see something, but
we don't know what.
We don't know what it is, but let's wait for 6 months. How crazy is that?
Yeah, you have the choice at least. That this is your choice to either wait or for us to begin the discovery process. So it's like, well, what sense does it make to wait when we already don't know what's happening?
Right.
So waiting 6 months, still not knowing. That develops
all
a
kinds
level
of things could be happening.
As well as the stress over not knowing what's happening, right? Anxiety, all types of things are going on internally that they see something and nobody knows what's really happening. So I didn't see at that point in time the sense in holding off. I felt that, there's more urgency in pursuing the discovery phase than to sit and wait in the unknown phase.
Right. And I love our doctors. It's so funny. The same doctors that I have over the years, you have them. We're still in the same building where your pediatrician was. And your kids are now in the same building. And
same practice,
It's just, so we love our doctors. But there's a time when you have to question.
Yes, you have to ask.
And advocate for yourself because they don't know everything. And sometimes the choice is yours to take your own health in your hands. So when they say, let's wait, you said,
Yeah, she didn't say let's wait. She just gave me the option because I think nowadays you have to, perhaps in healthcare, you give,
choices.
choices,
Yeah.
freedom of choice to,
Yeah.
Patients and
Yeah.
what have you. But, just from a place of knowing how Black and brown
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are, treated and how their concerns are responded to sometimes. Now, I'm not saying always. That was something that I considered, and I said, no, there's no point. It seems pointless
Yeah.
to pause here in this space when it makes better sense to proceed
Right.
and discover. At least you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Is it, something benign? Is it something malignant? In that sense, you can put some things to rest, or you can say, okay,
Let's proceed.
what's the
Yeah.
next course,
Yeah.
right?
So, what was your response?
Well, my response was, let's get it. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
There were about 3 areas of concern, and I said, let's get all of them done. And so just scheduled everything and move forward. And the way that I presented it at the health brunch, I love that. Those of you who used to watch television shows will get this reference. I said, picture it, Massachusetts, 2021. Okay, somebody will get the reference.
Yeah.
Picture it,
Yeah.
Sicily, 19.
Yes. Yes.
I was one of those kids who was watching the reruns.
Yes.
Of that show. Did you guess what show it was? We'll tell you at the end if you don't know.
Yes.
But I got the call that morning, and it was a winter morning. I was getting the kids ready. Zoe was, in toddler stages, and TJ was, a few years older, and everybody's getting ready. One's going to school, one's going to daycare, and I get the call, and I know the area code. I saw where it was coming from, and I was like, okay, that's a call I need to take because there's an answer that's coming that I've been waiting for. And, I answered. They verified that I was who I was. And then the nurse on the other end said, unfortunately. And I was like, wait, well, did she just say unfortunately? Like, to me, she said unfortunately. And, she gave me the news of the testing that the labs came back, and they saw positive, it was positive for carcinoma. And so I said, okay, they're talking to me? They called me. They called the right number.
Yeah.
They verified my name. It's me. So this is for me.
Yes.
And at that point in time, it was a quick process because there is no time to do the full processing. So it was a quick process. And I still had to finish getting the kids ready and get out the door and get everybody to school. And then in between, call my husband, call my mom, and then come back and get on a meeting because I think I had a 9:00 meeting. And then in between, kind of process a little bit and then another meeting and then process some more. So it was such a dramatic, it was dramatic.
Yes.
Couple of hours where I had to shut it off and then turn it back on and shut it off and turn it back on, kind of like receptors. It's like on, off, on, off.
Yeah. And imagine your mother getting that call. When I got that call, I think I froze. I think time stopped. I think, I don't know, I don't think the day went along. I was just frozen because This is
Yeah.
something that I never thought. We live in a real world.
Yeah.
We hear these things, but so close to you,
Yeah.
nah. You're
Yeah.
never thinking, okay, my daughter is going to call me one day and
Right.
say
And say this.
she has breast cancer, and so it was very jarring. But I want to encourage someone out there who may be going through the same thing, or if it does happen, it's a moment that is very, very, very shocking to your system. But do understand that all the things we go through, that God is right in the midst of everything. I'm not saying you don't fear, because I was very, very, very fearful.
Yeah.
Because when I got the news, my thought, my mind went to one place. One place.
Yeah.
And as human beings, that's what's happened.
Right. Because when you hear it, people say the C word. When you hear it,
Yeah.
you just think, oh,
Oh, it's over.
it's over. It's
Yeah.
over and done with. The thing about this is, sometimes when you as a person receive, this type of news, the impact that it has on you is it's different to the impact that it has on your family members, but it impacts them. Everybody around you, everybody in your village is impacted, because now it's a different level of care.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Nobody knew at that point in time
What the outcome?
what the outcome would be. Nobody knew if this was something that was a rare form. You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
And nobody knew yet what the course of action in terms of treatment would be.
Right.
Is there treatment? Is there new treatment? Is, the old treatment that's in place, is that going to be sufficient for what's presented to you? And so I think, as you said, it's jarring. And all of these things you have to process in the moment and as you go. And for one, I thought, wow, everything just came to a halt, but then sped up all of a sudden. And I felt like I was in, the Looney Tunes, was it Speedy Gonzales? I kind of felt like I was going like Speedy Gonzales, like I was moving super fast, because once I got that first phone call, then I got another phone call. Now I have a nurse coordinator. I'm like, introducing themselves. I'm going to be the one who's coordinating all your visits. I'm like, all my visits? Yes, you're going to have visits. You're going to have to go here. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. And so all of a sudden, this whirlwind of things is kind of coming all at once, and you have to move through each one, but one day at a time, one step at a time, one appointment at a time. And each appointment was for something a little bit different, but all coming together to decide what the course of treatment would be.
And for me, as a mother, the thing that hit me the hardest was, okay, what's going to happen to Aisha? And then I went to, what is going to happen to your children? That was, for me, the part that was tearing at my heartstrings. Like, okay, what is going to happen to the children if Aisha doesn't come through this? All those thoughts. I mean, the thoughts, because now you have to face reality. And I never told you this during the time that you were doing your treatments and all that, your surgeries and all that stuff. But just prior to your diagnosis, a co-worker of mine lost his wife that had twins, 4-year-old twins. And so all of that comes flushing in,
Right.
Is this going to be the scenario?
Right.
And what's going to happen to my grandchildren? What? And so you start thinking all these thoughts, and it was it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really, really, really tough.
Yeah. It is, a difficult period of time, especially the initial, because of everything that you don't know.
Yeah.
And your phrase, I can appreciate it now, but I think at the time it's like, but you said, leave the unknown to the one who knows.
Leave the unknown to the one who knows.
And that's a great quote. I think I have it written down
Oh,
in my
good,
list
good.
of quotes.
Someday you'll
yeah.
put your mother's name to that.
Yeah, but
leave the unknown to the one who knows.
Yeah.
And I think that's what carried us, in a sense, because we were totally out of,
Yeah.
it was out of our hands.
Right.
There's nothing I could say or do, as much as we love you, as much as we want to support you and did support you.
Yeah.
We couldn't wish it away.
Yeah.
We couldn't take it away. We couldn't say, okay, give it to me. I'll carry it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'll take it. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You worry about that. I'll take the load. I'll bear this cross,
yes,
right?
right. Because you hate to see your kids suffering.
Yeah.
So fast forward, you had surgery and
after surgery.
Yeah.
After surgery.
Yes, surgery after surgery after surgery.
So I had, multiple surgeries, a few complications here and there. So it was definitely a journey. But, throughout all of it, I held on to my faith. And I believe that was the thing that allowed me to, walk through this with a certain level of grace, right? Romans 10:11 says, they that put their trust in him shall never be put to shame. That's, one version of it. And I said, well, who else better to trust than God? I mean, who else? So what I said was, God, I trust you with my whole life. Yes. I trust you. Yes. So I'm going to put this in your hands, because clearly I can't fight this by myself. And so you are Jehovah Gabor. You are the man of war. You fight for us. So you're going to have to fight this one. And I'm going to come through with positivity. Yeah. And I'm going to come through with activation of faith and walk through it. And that's really what I did. And a friend of mine, I think we had this conversation. She called me just yesterday, and it was really beautiful. She called because it was, it is Cancer Awareness Month, and she said, I wanted to call you and just let you know how proud I am of you and how grateful I am, that you are here. And, just to know how you walk through this and you journey through this with such positivity and such grace. And of course, there were tears, but it was just beautiful, because sometimes you go through things, and whatever difficulty or trial or tribulation, whatever circumstance you want to call it, you sometimes lose sight of those who are onlookers, who are watching. Yeah. They're watching how you move through it. They're watching your response to things. They're watching how you emote. And, they are encouraged at times based on how, you walk through it. And so it was awesome, to kind of hear from her how she was encouraged, during this time, and encouraged to go and get her stuff done. I got to go schedule this, and I got to go get this done. Yeah. And, it was, for me, something positive that came out of this is that you can impact somebody's life, even though you might be going through something that's very dark and, very tough, difficult, what have you. You can help others. Yes. In the midst of it.
Yeah. And you were still blessed through the process, because you didn't have to go through chemo. you didn't have to go through radiation and all that stuff, which is a blessing. You know, some people have to go through that grueling time of you know, all these
Exhaustion and all the
treatment.
stuff on
Yes,
their
you know,
bodies. Yeah.
yeah. And the anchor I was talking about, she actually showed her skin what the radiation has done with her skin. You know, because she's walking.
Discoloration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's walking through this journey with everybody, and you know, she wants people to. She wants to encourage people. She wants to lift people up, and she
Yeah.
wants to make people aware that this thing is for real.
Right. Right.
You know, and so, you know, she is still going through it. So I encourage everybody out there, every woman out there, to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Schedule your mammogram, you know, get things done. And even after you've gotten your mammogram, continue to do breast examination.
Right.
Because that's how she found out that there was something wrong. Because she had her mammogram and she could have waited until next year.
Right.
But she said, you know, I do examination and I found this lump. And she's stage 3. So she had to do chemo and she had to do radiation and all that stuff. And, you know, she's still going through her journey.
Yeah.
She's still in treatment. But thank God you didn't have to go through that grueling task of having the radiation and chemo, because that is really tough on people's, you know, body. And so it's not a happy time, people. It's a time of a lot of fear, a lot of grappling with, why me, God? Why my daughter? But why not? And it's a lot of understanding who God is. Because I remember one night when I was so fearful and I thought, this is totally overwhelming. I think I went into a state of panic and I couldn't sleep. And while I was laying there panicking and shaking, the scripture the Lord brought to me was Psalm 56, verse 3. And David said, that time when I was afraid, or I am afraid, I will trust in you. Psalm 56, 3. And that was the psalm that carried me through the entire process. Because there were times when I had knots in my stomach. There were times when, oh my gosh, I don't know where this is going. And then I'm constantly reminded of that psalm. That time I am afraid, I will trust in you. And so we just trusted God. And look at you today. You know, you are doing well. You're still on your journey.
Yeah. I'm still on the journey. You know, I have a couple more years of my particular course of treatment, right? So it looks different. And I remember speaking to a friend of mine, and as a matter of fact, I need to call her, but a work friend who was also diagnosed maybe a few months after she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and unfortunately a rare form. So for her, the journey is different. And she told me a story which is just a source of encouragement, I think, too, and also a lesson in it. She was in, I believe, maybe a TJ Maxx or Marshall's, and she was, you know, kind of looking through things, and she said, this lady came up to her and said, you're doing a great job. And she was like, huh? And the woman said, I know what you're going through. And she understands because she herself had been diagnosed and had walked through that and, you know, had to have chemo. And the reason why she could tell what was going on with, you know, my friend, it was visible, right? It was visible. The hair loss was quite visible. And she said she was very encouraged by that, you know, that somebody saw her, you know, she saw me and she understood, right? But it also was a lesson to me as well, and it was a source of encouragement, because you never know what people are going
Right,
through.
right.
So somebody looks at me, and I'm also on this walk and this journey, but you can't tell
Right.
by looking at
Right.
me, because you don't see, discoloration. You don't see a
Hair
change
loss.
in my color and my melanin. You don't see the hair loss. You don't see that.
Right.
But I'm still going through the journey.
Yeah.
So when folks decide to get upset at people and, snap at people, you don't
You don't know.
what people are walking
Yeah.
through. They may not look like what they're going through,
Right.
but people are going through different things at different points in time. Some are visible and some are not. So be kind.
Yes.
Be kind to people.
Yes. And, the one thing about me and this journey, you were diagnosed in 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was still working. And the way I dealt with it at work was I only told the people, like my bosses, the owner of the company, people that if I need time off, if I need anything, and they were very gracious. The owner said, let us know if you ever need anything, because I was preparing that, there may be some days when I have to take off a few days from work. There were days when maybe I have to watch the children,
Right.
whatever. So I was planning ahead. And so I only told the people, and this is the way I dealt with it. Other people may have dealt with it differently, but this was me. I didn't tell anybody in the office. I have two young men in the office. One that calls me, says I'm his older sister, and the other one said I'm his mother. And those two people I told, and my bosses. But that was it, because I knew it was going to stay there. But I didn't mention it to anybody else, so nobody else in the company knew what was happening. And of course, my coworker, the one that I job shared with, I had to tell her,
Right.
because there were days when. But I said to her, I don't want this to be told to anybody. And not that I was hiding, but I just felt like, okay, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And when I look back over, I retired the end of April, and you were at the party. They had a retirement party for me. And because you were able to tell your story, you were at a place where you felt comfortable with your story, because I wasn't going to tell your story for you.
We learned that lesson.
We learned that lesson. So that was a hard lesson. And I decided I will never. And the reason I brought you on today on the program is because you're at that place now where you can tell your story. I would never have come on here and say, well, it's breast cancer month and I got a daughter with breast cancer. No. So at the retirement party, that came up because I was thanking people for being so kind during this whole process.
Yes.
And people's mouths were open. People were
they
surprised.
didn't know.
They were shocked. One lady walked up to me afterwards, I think the day after or something, and she said to me, why didn't you tell us? And I said, well, it wasn't my story to tell.
Not my story.
Plus, I didn't want the unnecessary, entrapments like, I didn't want people feeling sorry for me every single day. You know what I mean? Like, because you know how it is with sickness. People are concerned and they want to ask you questions. And, I didn't want to be inundated with that either. So I say all of that to say that the fact that they were so surprised is just a testimony of how I carried myself during those very hard times. I didn't go to work chopping people's head off.
Right.
I didn't go to work, bawling and crying and running around like a crazy woman and, mean-spirited to people because of what I was going through. God was my helper. And he said to me, in the time when you are afraid, you can trust in me. And so everybody was surprised. They didn't know that for 2 years I was going through this time of grief. It's actually a time of grief because you're grieving because somebody dear to you is facing a life-threatening illness.
Right.
You know, so you're grieving, you're mourning, you're not because the person is still alive, but you're grieving the process. And so I thank God for, how he kept us during that time.
Yeah.
And you're well on your way to recovery.
Amen.
And, I rejoice with you. I'm happy that you're still here.
Well, you better be.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
You better
And your
be.
children, your husband, we all are grateful. We are very grateful to God that we are not on the other end saying, we're mourning. We are rejoicing actually, that you're well on your way to recovery. Some people, that is not their story.
Yeah.
And so we pray for those people, even in this time, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We remember those that have gone through.
Yeah.
We remember those that have lost loved ones. We remember those that are still battling.
Yeah.
We continue to pray for them because this is not an easy process. It really isn't. It's as hard on you. It's very hard on you, but for us as the family, it's equally tough. And so we give God thanks for you and your life, and we said to God be the glory. Yeah. So do you have any closing words, any encouragement for anybody? Because
I do. What I would love to say is be your own advocate. Don't just follow along, but do your research. I remember when I spoke to my aunt, who is a former nurse and now she's teaching at a college in New York. She said, do your research. Go look, read, the National Institute for Health. Read, go and find out about what's going on with you so that you're able to ask, the questions that are appropriate for you. And another thing, don't wait. There's no reason to wait. Go and do the things that you need to do. Go and get your tests done. You need to go get your physical every year. Why is it not set? Put it on your calendar. When you're there, before you leave, put on next year's on your calendar, right? So it's all about, early detection gives you a better chance of, being able to live out, the length of days that God has allotted for you, right? In a good quality way. Yeah. So, be your own advocate. And advocacy is not just, you can't just sit back and wait for somebody else to tell you and to, push you and to urge you. Similar to exercising, right? Can anybody come in the bed and pull you out of the bed and put you on a treadmill? Can anybody do that? No. Nope. So you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own motivator. So get up, get out, go get her done.
Yes, that's some sound advice. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. Very important, very, very, very important. Don't wait a whole year before you get to your other mammogram to do breast examination. During the time you went last week and you had your mammogram done, start this week checking, always checking to see if there are lumps, there are bumps, anything unusual.
Yeah, any discoloration,
any discoloration, anything you notice that's not normal.
Definitely.
Because this anchor woman, like I said, she had her mammogram, and in a few weeks she noticed that she when she went back to the doctor, she has stage 3.
Yeah, and my friend, she was, just kind of going about normal everyday life.
Yeah.
but she noticed a change in her skin. She
Yeah.
was like, my skin looks weird here. And she noticed rash, and she noticed
Yeah.
discoloration and wrinkling and pill. So she was like, something's not right. So it's knowing your body.
Yeah.
You have to know yourself
That's
better
right.
than everybody else.
That's right.
If something looks different, you should be investigating.
Yes.
You shouldn't be brushing things off. And I think
right.
sometimes in busyness of life, we want to push things. I'll check on it. I'll do this later. But don't wait. Don't wait.
And I think I said this before. I have to confess that I had a similar scare, when I went to do my mammogram one year, and they said, we noticed some spots, so we want you to come back. And so I went back the following week, and it was grueling. I mean, they put you through, like really put you through. And I was traumatized by that. And for 2 years, I never went back. I was really traumatized. And then you got diagnosed, and I said, I am out of here. And ever since that, from 2021, every year, I'm going faithfully, and I'm getting it done.
That's right.
Everything
they say.
Yes.
Hey, you got a colonoscopy?
Yes.
It's time?
Yes.
Go get her done.
Right.
Go get her done.
Because early detection saves lives.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope that this was of some help to you. Ladies, again, ladies, I can't say it enough.
And men.
And men. And men. Because men have been diagnosed with breast cancer too.
Exactly.
Ladies and men, get your physical. Do what you need to do. Check out this body. Because you know what I always say? We get to do this once.
Once, yeah.
When it's done, you don't get a second chance. You don't get a do-over. So let's, take care of this temple.
Yeah.
This is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Let's keep it clean. Let's look after it. And, go to the doctors. They'll tell you how to take care of it. You don't know how, they'll tell you how to take care of it. So thank you for joining us. And I just want to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Until next time, thank you so much, Aisha, for joining me.
Yay.
That is beautiful. Love you and love you all, and I'll see you soon. God bless.